was born in Arizona, in Yuma, in 1993, and my parents immigrated to Arizona. 'Cause since there's not many Koreans in Arizona, very naturally, even though they were not Christians or they didn't have any faith, naturally they started attending to a Korean church. And through there, I believe they found a support system, kind of a community where they can share their culture and people who have the same language and the same food. And so I think that's something that was a big help to them during that time of immigration um, and adjusting to the culture there. I think those were the times. I know people have their experience at the church really varies. Some of them have a lot of difficulties with the church, with the first generation, second generation, or some they had a really bad experience because of past leaders. But for me personally, church was kind of my haven. It was a place where I can just be who I am, and I was accepted. And so at school, it was a little bit difficult for me to be adjusted. I was quite shy. I did not speak up much. I just did my work. But through church and through this community, I think I really found acceptance. And I think that's something like a lot of Korean Americans want. And just not just Korean Americans, but I think young children and teenagers. I think in the States, I did feel lonely because I didn't feel like I fit in. And also, I felt that same loneliness I feel, similar loneliness in Korea as well. Being in a culture where you might get strange looks because you act a certain way and you're not used to a certain pattern or a manner of speech. In that loneliness, you really search for people and you really search for a community. I think being part of a community, I realized, wow, I'm actually very similar to them. Yes, some aspects I'm different, but I'm very similar to them as well. I start to feel, oh yes, I'm a Korean as well, and they are accepting me as a Korean. And so I think whenever I think we feel lonely, I believe that we should also not just kind of stay back and just be lonely, but we should also get plugged in into some type of community, wherever that is. So that really helped me to change my thought and my idea, perception about Korea and the people, rather than just getting it from media or from the news. I really wanted to go to Wheaton College and I wanted to do biblical studies. And because I really wanted to mentor the youth, because of my pastors. My pastors back during those times, they really became my older brothers and you could say fathers. I really had people in my life, men in my life that kind of guided me. This is something that you should pursue, and this is something that you should kind of look forward. And that really helped me, especially in a time of identity crisis as a Korean American, and just from transitioning from a boy to a more young adult, and yeah, so that's why I wanted to become a youth pastor. I really wanted to help Korean Americans, actually number one was Korean Americans. I knew that, especially in the LA area and in San Diego, a lot of Korean Americans struggle with identity, with problems at home, and so they resort to very bad, habits, hanging with the wrong crowd, doing drugs, promiscuity, things like that. And that really broke my heart. I knew that it began probably from the home. A lot of absent, fathers, absent from the house or just not emotionally present. And I think because of that, I really wanted to invest in the next generation and especially in the Korean American, because I went through the similar struggles with them as well. And so I wanted to I wanted to go to Wheaton College in Illinois. Actually, when I told my father that, my father was a little bit hesitant. He really wanted me to go to Korea. And so I don't know how he found about a school. I don't know where he heard this school from, but he heard the school called Handong Global University. And I searched it up and I was like, this school? He wants me to go here? Why? Anyways, I went there, and through those times, I got to meet such great people and such great professors. And I think my heart started to open to Korea and to this culture. Living in Korea, it has changed my view as a Korean American. I see it as an advantage now. I see it as one of my strengths rather than a weakness or rather than something to be ashamed of. I think when I first came to Korea, I think a lot of native Koreans were a little bit envious that I came from America and that I was able to receive education without this pressure as they had to endure and go through. And I just see it, my Korean identity as something that I can now use to kind of be a bridge to the East and the West, the young and the old, the first generation and the second generation. Yeah, I think these days now, I think a lot of Koreans cannot tell that I'm Korean American, but once they spend time with me, they can see that this person is probably lived abroad. And I think there's times when I can kind of give a little further insight into maybe what's happening in America, or also and the vice versa. I think these days many students from America or in English speaking countries are coming to Korea to study, not just exchange program but 4 years, which this is not very. It wasn't common during when I first came. They also faced difficulties and struggles adjusting to the culture, and so I think I can kind of give also insights as well. Why Koreans or act a certain way, or they have a certain manner, and I can kind of be that bridge for both cultures. And so I see my Korean American identity as a strength, especially in Korea. America, sure, but especially in Korea, I see it as a strength that I can contribute to this country, and especially for the students that I interact with on a day-to-day basis. When I was working at Cheongdam at an English kindergarten, I saw the discrepancies between the kids from Cheongdam and the kids from lower income families, and Cheongdam kids, they would speak. By the time they finish this kindergarten, they would speak in American dialect. They would speak in such very proficient in the language, and they would take a test to go in elementary school to get into elementary school in Gangnam. And they have a bright future ahead of them because of the fact that they know English. But when I was teaching at my local church and also for lower income students, I saw that wow, these kids they're going to be pit against a competitive society, and they have trouble with English just because of the fact that they can't afford it. And so that really broke my heart, and I realized that I think maybe that's why God has called me here. Maybe that's why I'm supposed to be here and to serve and to open up a school, or I'm not sure yet, but to open up a school for these kids so that they can get quality education, quality English education, so they can learn English. But not just so they can learn English, but so that it could be a holistic learning. It's not just about grades or methodological, regurgitation of facts, but so that they can know who they are. And through language and through this providing a environment where they can use the language, they could find something about themselves. And also from the kind of springboard from that and kind of have their own dreams. And so that's something that I really want to start. Yeah. I think what I want to say to the potential viewers is not to disregard the heritage and the identity that you have, because that identity will be I believe, your source of strength. It will be your story that will be inscribed, that you would use to help other people. Again, I see that it was the sacrifice of the Korean people, the sacrifices of the people who brought up this nation. And once we forget that generation, that older generation, I think we tend to forget where to go. We tend to forget what next. What's next for Korea now? And so I think don't disregard the identity that we have, and to embrace it, to appreciate it, and to use it as a way to help other people, to contribute, and to especially those who are struggling. My name is Nehemiah Park, and this is my Korean American story.